Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session, looking at The Widow's Tears by George Chapman. Dating for this is around 1605-ish. It's printed in 1612, so it's pretty much at the earliest end of our current arrow of time, in the sense that this is the year we're trying to complete to move forward to the next year. We've done pretty much every play prior to 1605, and so this is me filling in the gaps. And there's very much prime George Chapman territory. We've done a few of these recently from around the same time signature. We're going to find out how the Widow's Tears functions. It's, I believe, a boys' company play. We're going to see how it dances as we go through the first third of the text with these wonderful readers. Reading today, Eudora, Thomasin, and Ianthe is
David in Bath.
Reading Psorabeus and Argus today is
Alan in Suffolk.
Reading Hiarbus and Arsace is
Honor in London.
Reading Rebus and Sthenia is
Hi, it's Greg, and all I can think is there's been a murder.
Yes, for those unaware of the crime novels of Ian Rankin, that's where that reference came from. I sometimes forget how the question of culture across countries, how many references sometimes cross and don't. Reading Lycus today is
No, hi, I'm Eric. I'm here. I kind of wonder if Zoom cut that out, but it probably didn't.
It did a bit, but I did just about get the joke. Yes,
it's fine.
Reading Cynthia is
Aliki in Athens.
Reading Lysander is
Lysander, and that's a reference to a Jilly Cooper adaptation into a miniseries from the 1990s, and it's Sarah in The Hague.
And reading Tharsalio, who attempts to do a strange cultural reference point on that one.
Yes, good luck with that. It's Donald in Northamptonshire.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions. We also have Minister Without Portfolio today is...
Hi, I'm Lynn. I'm in the Northwestern United States, and I'm going to disappear. Just lurking.
Lurking, which anyone can do if you want to join these sessions. You don't have to read. You could just be in the background and just write rude comments in the chat and just try and make us laugh. You know, that's entirely valid enterprise. Anyway, Widow's Tears. Let's dive into this play. Act 1, Scene 1. We have no prologue, but we do have a character coming on. Tharsalio, alone with a glass in his hand, making ready.
Thou blind, imperfect goddess, that delights like a deep-reaching statesman, converse only with fools, jealous of knowing spirits, for fear their piercing judgments might discover thy inward weakness and despise thy power, condemn thee for a goddess, thou that ladest the unworthy ass with gold, while worth and merit serve thee for naught. Weak fortune, I renounce thy vain dependence and convert my duty and sacrifices of my sweetest thoughts to a more noble deity, sole friend to worth and patroness of all good spirits. Confidence, she be my guide, and hers the praise of these my worthy undertakings.
Enter Lysander with a glass in his hand, as well as Cynthia, Hylus, and Ero.
Morrow, brother. Not ready yet?
No, I have somewhat of the brother in me. I dare say your wife is many times ready, and you not up. Save you, sister, how are you enamoured of my presence? How like you my aspect?
Faith, no worse than I did last week. The weather has nothing changed the grain of your complexion.
Firm proof 'tis ingrain. So are not all complexions. A good soldier's face, sister.
Made to be worn under a beaver.
Aye, it would show well enough under a mask, too.
So much for the face.
But is there no object in this suit to wet your tongue upon?
None, but fortune sends you well to wear it, for she best knows how you got it.
Faith, is the portion she bestows upon younger brothers, valour and good clothes. Marry, if you ask how we come by this new suit, I must take time to answer it, for as the ballad says, in written books I find it. These are the blossoms of spirit, and I will have it said for my father's honour that some of his children were truly begotten.
Not all.
Shall I tell you, brother, that I know will rejoice you? My former suits have all been spenders. This shall be a speeder.
A thing to be heartily wished. But, brother, take heed you be not gulled, be not too forward.
It had been well for me if you had followed that counsel. You were too forward when you stepped into the world before me and gulled me of the land that my spirits and parts are indeed born to.
May we not have the blessing to know the aim of your fortunes? What coast, for heaven's love?
Nay, 'tis a project of state. You may see the preparation, but the design lies hidden in the breasts of the wise.
May we not know it?
Not unless you'll promise me to laugh at it, for without your applause I'll numb.
The quality of it may be such as a laugh will not be ill bestowed upon't. Pray heaven I call not Arsace's sister.
What, the Pandarus?
Know you, as who knows not, the exquisite lady of the palace, the late governor's admired widow, the rich and haughty Countess Eudora? Were not she a jewel worth the wearing if a man knew how to win her?
Oh, how's that? How's that?
Brother, there is a certain goddess called Confidence that carries a main stroke in honourable preferments. Fortune waits upon her. Cupid is at her beck. She sends them both on errands. This deity doth promise me so much assistance in this business.
But if this deity should draw you up in a basket to your countess's window, and there let you hang for all the wits in the town to shoot at, how then?
If she do, let them shoot their bolts and spare not. I have a little bird in a cage here that sings me better comfort. Should be the bar. You'll say I was page to the Count, her husband. What of that? I have thereby 1 foot in her favour already. She has taken note of my spirit and surveyed my good parts, and the picture of them lives in her eye, which sleep, I know, cannot close till she have embraced the substance.
All this savours of the blind goddess you speak of.
Should I despair but that Cupid hath 1 dart in store for her great ladyship, as well as for any other huge lady whom she doth stoop gallant to kiss their worthy followers. In a word, I am assured of my speed. Such fair attempts led by a brave resolve are evermore seconded by fortune.
Brother, have I not heard you say your own ears have been witness to her vows, made solemnly to your late lord in memory of him, to preserve till death the unstained honour of a widow's bed? If nothing else, yet that might cool your confidence.
Hush, sister. Suppose you should protest with solemn oaths, as perhaps you have done, if ever heaven hears your prayers that you may live to see my brother nobly interred, to feed only upon fish and not endure the touch of flesh during the wretched Lent of your miserable life. Would you believe it, brother?
I am therein most confident.
Indeed, you had better believe it than try it. But pray, sister, tell me, you are a woman. Do not you wives nod your heads and smile upon another when you meet abroad?
But smile? Why so?
Well, as who should say, are we not mad wenches that can lead our blind husbands thus by the noses? Do you not brag amongst yourselves how grossly you abuse their honest credulities, how they adore you for saints, and you believe it, while you adorn their temples, and they believe it not? How you vow widowhood in their lifetime, and they believe you, when even in the sight of their breathless corse, even they be fully cold, you join embraces with his groom, or his physician, by perhaps his poisoner, or at least by the next moon, if you can expect so long, solemnly plight new hymeneal bonds with a wild, confident, untamed ruffian.
As for example?
And make him the top of his house and sovereign of the palace, as, for example, look you, brother, this glass of mine.
What of that?
While I am with it, it takes inspiration from my face. Can I make it so mine that it should be of no use to any other? Will it not do his office to you or you, and as well to my groom as to myself? Brother, monopolies are cried down. It is not madness for me to believe, when I have conquered that fort of chastity, the great countess, that if another man of my making and metal shall assault her, her eyes and ears should lose their function, her other parts their use, as if nature had made her all in vain, unless I only had stumbled into her quarters.
Brother, I fear me in your travels you have drunk too much of that Italian air, and have infected the whole mass of your ingenious nature, dried up all your sap of generous disposition, poisoned the very essence of your soul, and so polluted your senses that whatsoever enters there takes from them contagion, and is to your fancy presented as foul and tainted, which in itself perhaps is spotless.
No, sister, it hath refined my senses and made me see with clear eyes, and to judge of objects as they truly are, not as they seem, and through their mask to discern the true face of things. It tells me how short-lived widows' tears are, that their weeping is in truth but laughing under a mask, that they mourn in their gowns and laugh in their sleeves, all which I believe is a Delphian oracle, and am resolved to burn in that faith. And in that resolution do I march to the great lady.
You lose time, brother, in discourse. By this you had bore up with the lady and clapped her aboard, for I know your confidence will not dwell long in the service.
No, I will perform it in the conqueror's style. Your way is not to win Penelope by surprise. The castle's carried by a sudden assault that would perhaps sit out a 12-month siege. It would be a good breeding to my young nephew here if he could procure a stand at the palace to see with what alacrity I'll accost her countessship, in what garb I will woo her, with what facility I will win her.
It shall go hard, but we'll hear your entertainment for your confidence' sake.
And having won her nephew, this sweet face, which all the city says is so like me shall be preferred, for I will wed thee to my great widow's daughter and sole heir, the lovely spark, the bright Laodice.
A good, pleasant dream.
In this eye I see that fire that shall in me inflame the mother, and that in this shall set on fire the daughter. It goes, sir, in a blood. Believe me, brother, these destinies go ever in a blood.
These diseases do, brother. Take heed of them. Fare you well. Take heed you be not baffled.
Exeunt Lysander, Cynthia, the ever-talkative Hylus Ero, leaving Tharsalio behind.
Now, thou that art the third blind deity that governs earth in all her happiness, the life of all endowments, confidence, direct and prosper my intention. Command thy service deities. Love and fortune to second my attempts for this great lady, whose page I lately was, that she whose board I might not sit at, I may board a bed and underbring who bore so high her head.
And exit Tharsalio, end of the first scene. Okay, this is doing a lot of interesting stuff. Not wholly unproblematic stuff, but it's an interesting question, of course, what happens with someone like Tharsalio, who, shall we say, is a tad confident. But he's all about the world of confidence, and appearance, and clearly thinks a lot of themselves. And it's an interesting question as to where this character will be by the end of the play. I know where I'd like him to be by the end of the play. I don't think he will. But as a starting point, this scene is really interesting. I think it really bounces along, considering how much of this is basically three people just going, wittering at each other. It's setting up plot, but you do get an impression of their relationship together, these three interlocutors. And the two random people who are just standing in the background and say nothing in the entire scene, who will get some dialogue later. Thoughts on the room on this? I'll go to Sarah first.
I mean, I agree. You get a lovely sense of what their relation is to each other and how they sort of function when they're together as a group. But I have to say, my God, I was zoning out a bit during some of those speeches from Tharsalio. I know he's meant to be like, confident, and so he's probably, likes the sound of his own voice, but I was just a bit like, this is a very dangerous scene to open a play with, I think, because unless which I mean, you just have to make sure they were, but your director and your actor playing Tharsalio would have to make sure that there was a lot of variety in this, because otherwise you're getting your audience to switch off in the very first scene, and that's a hard thing to come back from.
Donald.
Lysander does say, you don't half go on a bit, don't you? I mean, he actually does say that. So I think there is a possibility of some comedy there. And I didn't feel, as I was reading Tharsalio, that he was actually as confident as he makes out. I think he is steeling himself, psyching himself, whatever you want to say. And I think there is a large veneer there of BS. That was my take on it.
Yeah, there was part of me thinking, he feels like he's quite a broy chap who probably has a podcast. That and the kind of podcast isn't really a podcast; it's actually a video thing. But they've got the microphones in their face and they're interviewing other bros about this kind of stuff. And it does feel the stuff he's coming out with feels like it's on that level, doesn't it? It feels like, I recognize this material. I
didn't feel I was getting to his heart, shall we say. There was a lot of performance there.
Yeah, and there's a lot here that's feels very cynical. I mean, that's the thing, and I'm thinking about also the audience for this kind of thing, and the performance for this is, that if we're thinking this is a boys' company play as well, this is an awful lot to be lading onto your lead. I mean, and I was saying, structurally, there's going to be a lot of this kind of material going on, and that seems unusual for a boys' company play to be quite so uneven.
It's not just the quantity. I mean, the syntax is just it's
yeah.
Give me a main clause, please.
Oh no! That's not, I don't think we're playing that game. This is the rolling clause game.
Absolutely.
But which is something that goes back a long way. I mean, this is the kind of thing that you would get in a debate play in the previous century. This kind of thought process that rattles on and someone pokes it slightly from another direction to see where it goes. Okay, any additional thoughts, David?
Yeah, that's very much Chapman's style, I think, isn't it? The only other one that I know is Bussy d'Amboise, and all I really remember is how difficult it was to follow each speech because the rhetoric was so dense. This comes across a bit more easily to me, but you've still got to work at it, I think. And there's a lot of he's got a chip on his shoulder, and he wants everybody to know that, I think, doesn't he?
Yeah, and it is interesting how Chapman's style seems to be getting more dense as time goes on. I definitely recall his earlier plays bounced along a lot easier and weren't doing these kinds of games at this density. I think actually, once you get actors together and they work on this, that this stuff becomes a lot easier to do. I think it's harder for a sight read than it is. But yeah, Sarah's point about, you could lose your audience. You've got to give this and I think the relationships between these three characters is the key to making this scene land, because, they're not on his side really here. But they have to be, but they have a relationship because they're connected. They're not just random strangers having a chat down a pub. Sarah.
Just thinking about it, I wonder if you could do something, give them something physical to do while this conversation was going on, like have them playing a game or something, so that there's actually, and then you can work the body language and the other two, like looking at each other, giving each other little looks, and maybe passing a ball from one to the other or something, just to kind of underscore that relationship and also liven up a bit for the audience.
Well, I was thinking Tharsalio's getting ready to go out, so he's checking himself in the mirror, and they come in and go, "Are you ready yet? We've been waiting half an hour." There are games that could be played there to give it a slight, something else to bounce off. So, yeah. Okay, let's gather some more data with some other characters. I say that. One of them is one who was doing quite a lot in the previous scene. They've had a whole 8 to 9 lines to get a breath. So, Act 1, Scene 2, enter Lysander and Lycus.
'Tis miraculous that you tell me, sir. He come to woo our lady mistress for his wife.
'Tis a frenzy he is possessed with, and will not be cured but by some violent remedy. And you shall favour me so much to make me spectator of the sea. But is she, say you, already accessible for suitors? I thought she would have stood so stiffly on her widow vow that she would not endure the sight of a suitor.
Faith, sir, Penelope could not bar her gates against her wooers, but she still will be mistress of herself. It is, you know, a certain itch in female blood. They love to be sued to, but she'll hearken to no suitors.
But by your leave, Lycus, Penelope is not so wise as her husband Ulysses, for he, fearing the jaws of the siren, stopped his ears with wax against her voice. They that fear the adder's sting will not come near her hissing. Is any suitor with her now?
A Spartan lord, dating himself our great viceroy's kinsman, and 2-3 other of his country lords are spots in his train. He comes armed with his altitude letters in grace of his person, with promise to make her a duchess if she embrace the match. This is no mean attraction to her high thoughts, but yet she disdains him.
And how then shall my brother presume of acceptance? Yet I hold it much more under her contentment to marry such a nasty braggart than under her honour to wed my brother, a gentleman, though I say it, more honourably descended than that lord, who perhaps, for all his ancestry, would be much troubled to name you the place where his father was born.
Nay, I hold no comparison betwixt your brother and him, and the venereal disease to which they say he hath been wedded shall, I hope, first rot him, ere she endure the savour of his sulphurous breath. Well, her ladyship is at hand. Ye are best to take you to your stand.
Thanks, good friend Lycus.
Exit Lysander. Enter Argus Barehead, with whom another usher Lycus joins going over the stage. Hiarbus and Psorabeus next. Rebus single before Eudora, Laodice, Sthenia bearing her train. Ianthe following.
I admire, madam, you cannot love whom the viceroy loves.
And one whose veins swirl with blood, madam, as they do with his lordship.
My dear kinsman, his lordship is, to his altitude the viceroy. In care of whose good speed here, I know his altitude hath not stepped to sound sleep since his departure.
I thank Venus I have, ever since he came.
You sleep away your honour, madam, if you neglect me.
Neglect your lordship? There was one negligence no less than disloyalty.
I much doubt that, sir. It were rather a presumption to take him, being of the blood viceroyal.
Not at all, being offered, madam.
But offered ware is not so sweet, you know. They are the graces of the viceroy that woo me, not your lordships, and I conceive it should be neither honour nor pleasure to you to be taken in for another man's favours.
Taken in, madam? You speak as I had no house to hide my head in.
I have heard so indeed, my lord, unless it be another man's.
You have heard untruth, then. These lords can well witness I can want no houses.
Nor palaces neither, my lord.
Nor courts neither.
Nor temples, I think, neither. I believe we shall have a god of him.
Enter Tharsalio.
See the bold fellow. Whither will you, sir?
Away. All honour to you, madam.
How now, base companion?
Base, madam. He's not base that fights as high as your lips.
And does that beseem my servant?
Your court servant, madam.
One that waited on my board?
That was only a preparation to my wait on your bed, madam.
How darest thou come to me with such a thought?
Come to you, madam. I dare come to you at midnight and bid defiance to the proudest spirit that haunts these your loved shadows, and would anyway make terrible the access of my love to you.
Love me? Love my dog?
I am bound to that by the proverb, madam.
kennel with him. Intrude not here. What is it thou presumest on?
On your judgment, madam, to choose a man and not a giant, as these are that come with titles and authority as they would conquer or ravish you. That I come to you with the liberal and ingenuous graces, love, youth, and gentry, which, in no more a deformed a person than myself, deserve any princess.
In your saucy opinion, sir, and sirrah too, get gone, and let this malapert humour return thee no more. For, afore heaven, I'll have thee tossed in blankets.
In blankets, madam, you must add your sheets, and you must be the tosser.
Nay then, sir, you are as gross as you are saucy.
And all one, sir, for I am neither.
Thou art both.
Thou liest. Keep up your smiter, Lord Rebus.
Usest thou thus, his altitude's cousin?
The place thou knowest protects thee.
Tie up your valour, then, till another place turn me loose to you. You are the lord, I take it, that wooed my great mistress here with letters from his altitude, which, while she was reading, your lordship, to entertain time, straddled and scaled your fingers as you would show what an itching desire you had to get betwixt her sheets.
Slight, why does your lordship endure him?
The place, my lord.
Be you his attorney, sir?
What would you do, sir?
Make thee leap out at window at which thou camest in, horse and bagpipe lords.
What rudeness is this?
What tameness is it in you, madam, to stick at the discarding of such a suitor? A lean lord dubbed with the lard of others, a diseased lord, too, that opening certain magic characters in an unlawful book, upstart as many aches in his bones as there are ouches in his skin. Send him, mistress, to the widow your tenant, the virtuous Pandrous Arsace. I perceive he has crowns in his purse that make him proud of a string. Let her pluck the goose, therefore, and her maids dress him.
Oh, my lord, suffer him.
The place, sir. Believe it, the place.
Oh, good Lord Rebus, the place is never like to be yours, that you need respect it so much.
Thou wrongst the noble gentleman.
Noble gentleman, a tumour, an impostume he is, madam, a very hautboy, a bagpipe in whom there is nothing but wind, and that none of the sweetest neither.
Quit the house of him by the head and shoulders.
Thanks to your honour, madam, and my lord cousin the viceroy shall thank you.
So shall he indeed, sir.
Will you be gone, sir?
Away, poor fellows.
What is he made of? Or what devil sees your childish and effeminate spirits in him, that thus ye shun him? Free us of thy sight. Be gone, or I protest thy life shall go.
Yet shall my ghost stay still, and haunt those beauties and glories that have rendered it immortal. Since I see your blood runs, for the time, high in that contradiction foreruns truest agreements like the elements, fighting before they generate. That time must be attended most in things most worth. I leave your honour freely, and commend that life you threaten, when you please, be adventured in your service, so your honour require it likewise.
Do not come again.
I'll come again, believe it, and again.
Exit Tharsalio.
If he shall dare to come again, I charge you, shut doors upon him.
Shut them, madam. To all men else, then, if it please your honour. But if any enter, he'll be one.
I hope, wise sir, a guard will keep him out.
For heaven, not a guard, please your honour.
Thou liest, base ass. One man enforce a guard? I'll turn you all away by our Isles goddess, if he but set a foot within my gates.
Your honour shall do well to have him poisoned.
Or begged of your cousin, the viceroy.
And exit Eudora with everybody else end of scene. Okay. Your honour shall do well to have him poisoned.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, it's a fascinating scene, and if I didn't know the structure of this kind of play and where it's probably going, I'm sort of finding this situation really interesting, and you could do something with this kind of interminable sex pest. I mean, it's just like he just turns up, and he's just going, I'm going to say, I mean, my God, his approach is terrible. he just goes. It just turns up and just says, "Wow, come on, let's have at it." And it's just like, what? That was your plan?
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, if he just gets constantly slapped down and they poison him at the end, I'd be quite interested.
I wouldn't complain.
Yeah. It's because I say the situation is interesting. There's some of the other stuff we're only sort of getting a sense of all these other people because they're just sort of there saying some words, and I'm not really sure who they are. Anyone else just loving calling as an official title his altitude? I want to be called that. I it's great. It just
My Lord Altitude.
yes. I was not aware of that one as a turn of phrase. That is a new one on me. I'm sure there's probably some alteration or variation that makes that one more appropriate. But yeah, Alan.
Yeah, I think I've come across the term Altesse for continental nobility. So, I mean, I think, again, we've got a play which is allegedly set in foreign parts. I'm always a little skeptical of how far it's really genuine foreign and how far we've changed the country to protect the guilty.
I don't know. It sort of doesn't feel actually particularly like it's set in sort of an English context. Actually, I mean, I think there is an attempt to create a separate world, and of course, it feels like his altitude is what happens when you put your Royal Highness through Google Translate. Because you can sort of see where it's coming from. Alan.
Yeah, you've also got a couple of times in there reference to bagpipe lords, which with 1605 is potentially a topical reference.
It's asking for trouble, that is.
Well,
and some people do get in trouble. And, we're 1605, we're presumably only a few months away from the gunpowder plot. So, it's an interesting... The precise dating for this is not absolute. So we know it's printed... 1612, so it won't get printed for a while. So the precise dating is unclear. And yeah, just unfortunate lines that a modern construction doesn't land very well. So you must be the tosser. We all know who the tosser is in this scene. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah. Thoughts on Eudora and actually the rest of the hangers-on around, the rest of the scene, not just the guy we know about. Has anyone sort of got a sense of what's really going on here with them? It's very hard from this kind of reading because I think there's a lot of physical business which would unpack some of this. David, were you waving?
Well, I'm reading it as if she's mortally offended right from the start. I'm just wondering whether other people might play it with outward indignation, but maybe there's an attraction there underneath it all. I can't really do that online, so but it's a fierce argument, and she wants him chucked out and everything. But it's kind of setting up a relationship that will develop later in the play, isn't it? I think
it presumably is, but it's an interesting question. Are any of the other people in the scene any better than Tharsalio? They're just a bit more subtle, or they're playing the game? Is that sort of what the play is hinting at? That was my thought. Anyway, Alan.
Just wondering whether Eudora is acting in the way that Helen used to refer to as running away very slowly.
Yes, what is the playwright's opinion of what this character is doing, especially with the attitudes at the time to widows specifically, about this idea of once a woman has been married, that her interest in sex increases and because the potential of sex has been unlocked to them, and they become terribly intemperate because of that. And that is an attitude of the time, which I'm not endorsing, by the way. I'm just pointing it out. But yeah, I suspect maybe that may be something what is in Chapman's mind here. So, but I don't think this scene has necessarily presented that yet. But Sarah.
It's hard to tell because I'm not quite sure of context yet, but I get the impression that Rebus could be hilarious. Actually, that he could be that he could actually be a sort of quite pompous. He might not be. He might be sort of. But you could take these lines different ways, and I think there's the potential there for him to just be a really standout funny character that the audience actually kind of could be quite fond of. Although clearly he's not going to get the girl, is he? He's the annoying one is going to get the girl, because that's the way these things always go. But he could be like extremely funny, I think.
Because, but I mean, it's also a question of how controlling his behavior is as well, in the sense that, he's there to protect her honor and he immediately leaps in quite an aggressive way. But he also could come across as actually quite endearing, because, of course, he's sort of ineffectual as well.
That's the thing. I don't like, is it aggressive? Like, I mean, on the page, it's aggressive, but I think depending on how you played it, if he did it with a certain amount of flap and bluster, because he's been talking about honor, and then this obnoxious guy shows up and he's immediately like, oh, like it could actually be super funny, that, but I don't know. I mean, he might turn out to be really nefarious. I don't know yet, but it's just I'm not quite sure. It could go either way.
Yeah. Well, let's find out. Let's go forward. Act 1, Scene 3. Once again, Lysander from his stand.
This braving wooer had the success expected. The favour I obtained made me witness to the sport, and let his confidence be sure I'll give it him home. The news by this is blown through the 4 quarters of the city. Alas, good confidence. But the happiness is, he has a forehead of proof. The stain shall never stick there, whatsoever his reproach may be.
Enter Tharsalio.
What in discourse?
I'll under furies take this vile encounter. Who could imagine this Saturnian peacock could be so barbarous to use a spirit of my erection with such low respect? Oh, heaven, it cuts my gall. I'll dissemble it.
What, my noble lord?
Well, sir, that may be yet and means to be.
What means your lordship, then, to hang that head that has been so erected? It knocks, sir, at your bosom to come in and hide itself.
Not a jot.
I hope by this time it needs fear no horns.
Well, sir, but yet that blessing runs not always in a blood.
What? Blanketed? Oh, the gods! Spurned out by grooms like a base bisogno? Thrust out by the head and shoulders?
You do well, sir, to take your pleasures of me. I may turn tables with you ere long.
What? Has thy wit's fine engine taken cold? Art stuffed in the head? Canst answer nothing?
The truth is, I like my entertainment the better that 'twas no better.
Now the gods forbid that this opinion should run in her blood.
Have not you heard this principle? All things by strife engender.
Dogs and cats do.
And men and women too.
Well, brother, in earnest, you have now set your confidence to school, from whence I hoped has brought home such a lesson as will instruct his master never after to begin such attempts as end in laughter.
Well, sir, you lessen my confidence still. I pray heavens your confidence have not more shallow ground, that I know, that mine you reprehend so.
My confidence? In what?
Maybe you trust too much.
Wherein?
In human frailty.
Why, brother, know you aught that may impeach my confidence, as this success may yours? Hath your observation discovered any such frailty in my wife? For that is your aim, I know. Then let me know it.
Good, good. Nay, brother, I write no books of observations. Let your confidence bear itself out as mine shall me.
That's scarce a brother's speech. If there be aught wherein your brother's good might any way be questioned, can you conceal it from his bosom?
So, nay, my saying was but general. I glanced at no particular.
Then I must press you further. You spake as to yourself, but yet I overheard, is if you knew some disposition of weakness where I had most fixed my trust. I challenge you to let me know what 'twas.
Brother, are you wise?
Why?
Be ignorant. Did you never hear of Actaeon?
What then?
Curiosity was his death. He could not be content to adore Diana in her temple, but he must needs dog her to her retired pleasure and see her in her nakedness. You enjoy the sole privilege of your wife's bed? Have you no pretty Paris for your page, no young Adonis to front you there?
I think none. I know not.
No, not still, brother. Ignorance and credulity are your sole means to obtain that blessing. You see, your greatest clerks, your wisest politicians are not that way fortunate. Your learned lawyers would lose a dozen poor men's causes to gain a lease on, but for a term. Your physician is jealous of his. Your sages in general, by seeing too much, oversee that happiness. Only your blockheadly tradesman, your honest, meaning citizen, your knot-headed country gentleman, your unapprehending stinker, is blessed with the sole prerogative of his wife's chamber, which he is yet beholding, not to his stars, but to his ignorance. And if he be wise, brother, I must tell you, the case alters. How do you relish these things, brother?
Passing ill.
So do sick men solid meats. Hark you, brother, are not you jealous?
No. Do you know cause to make me?
Hold you then. And did your wife never spice your broth with a dram of sublimate? Has she not yielded up the fort of her honour to a staring soldado, and, taking courage from her guilt, played open bankrout of all shame and run the country with him? And then bless your stars. Bow your knees to Juno. Look where she appears.
Enter Cynthia, Hylus, and Ero.
I've sought you long, sir. There's a messenger within hath brought you letters from the court, and desires your speech.
I can discover nothing in her looks. Go, I'll not be long.
Sir, it is of weight, the bearer says, and besides much haste in his departure. Honourable brother, cry mercy. What in a conqueror's style? But come and overcome.
Of course.
Alas, you say, of how slight metal widows' vows are made.
That shall prove you. So that shall you prove too ere long.
Yet for the honour of our sex, boast not abroad this your easy conquest. Another might perhaps have stayed longer below stairs, but it was your confidence that surprised her love. That surprised her love.
Oh.
No, it's a Hylus we're looking for. Who's down as Hylus? Have I not given out a Hylus? I don't think I have. Had I missed a Hylus? Lynn, take a Hylus.
My uncle had instructed me how to accost an honourable lady, to win her, not by suit, but by surprise.
The whelp and all.
Good uncle, let not your near honours change your manners. Be not forgetful of your promise to me touching your lady's daughter, Laodice. My fancy runs so upon it that I dream every night of her.
Good chicken, go thy ways, thou hast done well. Eat bread with thy meat.
Come, sir, will you in?
I'll follow you.
I'll not stir a foot without you. I cannot satisfy the messenger's impatience.
Will you not resolve me, brother?
He takes Tharsalio aside.
Of what?
Lysander stamps and goes out vexed with Cynthia, Hylus, and Ero.
So, there's Vini for Vini. I've given him the speeding place for all his confidence. Well, out of this, perhaps, there may be moulded matter of more mirth than my baffling. It shall go hard. I'll make my constant sister act as famous a scene as Virgil did his mistress, who caused all the fire in Rome to fail, so that none could light a torch but at her nose. Now forth. At this house dwells a virtuous dame, sometimes of worthy fame, now like a decayed merchant turned broker. When retails refuse commodities for unthrifty gallants, Her wit I must employ upon this business to prepare my next encounter. In such a fashion as shall make all split. Ho, Madam Arsace! Pray heaven the oyster wives should not get the news of my wooing hither amongst their stale pilchards.
Enter Arsace and Thomasin.
What, my lord of the palace?
Look you!
Why, this was done like a beaten soldier.
Hark, I must speak with you. I have a share for you in this rich adventure. You must be the ass charged with crowns to make way to the fort, and I the conqueror to follow and seize it. And seest thou this jewel?
He's come to that. Why, Thomasin,
Madam?
did not one of the countess's serving men tell us that this gentleman was sped?
That he did, and how her honour graced and entertained him in very familiar manner.
And brought him downstairs herself.
Aye, forsooth, and commanded her men to bear him out of doors.
Slight, pelted with rotten eggs. Oh, sorry, wrong person.
Slight, pelted with rotten eggs?
Nay, more than that, had already possessed her sheets.
No, indeed, mistress, 'twas her blankets.
Out, you young hedge sparrow, learn to tread before you be fledged.
He kicks her out.
Well, have you done now, lady?
Oh, my sweet Killerbuck.
You now in your shallow pate think this a disgrace to me, such a disgrace as is a battered helmet on a soldier's head. It doubles his resolution. Say, shall I use thee?
Use me?
O holy Reformation, how art thou fallen down from the upper bodies of the church to the skirts of the city? Honesty is stripped out of his true substance into verbal nicety. Common sinners startle at common terms, and they that by whole mountains swallow down the deeds of darkness. A poor mouth of a familiar word makes them turn by the white of the eye. Thou art the lady's tenant.
For term, sir.
A good induction. Now be successful for me. Make me lord of the palace, and thou shalt hold thy tenement to thee and thine heirs forever, in free smockage as of the manner of panderage, provided always...
If you take me unprovided.
Provided, I say, that thou makes thy repair to her presently, with a plot I will instruct thee in, and for thy surer access to her greatness, thou shalt present her as from thyself, with this jewel.
So her old grudge stand not betwixt her and me.
Fear not that. Presents are present cures for female grudges. Make bad seem good. Alter the case with judges.
And they exit and end of Act 1. Okay. It just sort of gets more difficult to deal with as we go on. I'm starting to just think, okay, I'm starting to drift from production of this play to material from this play. And I'm starting to look at the material going, oh, we could build a really interesting incel thing here, couldn't we? Some of this material is really pertinent. The structure of the plot isn't, but the characters actually are. And that's why I'm sort of going, oh, there's something here that actually could be worked into a piece. I just don't quite know how to do it yet. And of course, I don't know where it goes. You know, for all we know, he's cast into outer darkness and things. But, you know, I'm sure his witty plotting will probably... Anyway, Lynn.
Eric had a question in the chat that I just thought I would address. The word surprise in this period has an explicitly military meaning. It means basically to ambush. So it doesn't have our current sort of more general meaning. So and military metaphors for wooing really also common in this period.
Because, of course, what this scene is doing from the off is, of course, Tharsalio has been rebuffed, and Lysander comes out and just goes,
"Told you so."
Told you so. And it's like you kind of want the play to end there. It's just like, maybe you should learn a lesson and go away and think about yourself. And no, he doubles down. And that's why I'm sort of saying that it feels really pertinent that there's this double downing of this really, really awful thought process that Tharsalio is sort of caught in here, and especially the grooming at the beginning. I was saying, he could run a podcast. He's the kind of person who probably absorbs a certain amount of that sort of bro negging sort of culture that's just so toxic that's out there, and that really feeds into that. And then you have these relatively normal, stable people like Lysander, who's there going, dude, no, and isn't getting through on some level. Sarah.
Yeah, not only does he double down, but he then goes on the attack, which of course we see a lot of these days. Like deny that you're wrong, double down on the thing that is wrong, and then attack the person who's calling you out for being wrong, and sort of try and turn it around on them. I mean, that's just classic incel behavior, isn't it? Well, not just incels, there's a whole load of it on online these days, and in politics. And it's just, you've got a really pithy example of it happening just all in one scene there.
Yeah, I mean, structurally, this first act is incredibly clever. Regardless of what, if only Chapman used his powers for good. Regardless of what we think about what the play is doing, it is quite well formed. And again, I'm just struck by how weird it is that Tharsalio is just such a massive role. There is clearly, and even Lysander's not small either, actually. He's had a fair chunk to say. This is quite individual heavy stuff in an acting company that I'm not sure is normally designed that way. Boys' company plays tend to be more balanced in the ensemble, though with appropriate scaled roles for newbies, etc. So I'm just curious about that. I don't know precisely which boys' company. I haven't got my notes in front of me, so don't ask specifics at this time. But I'm just curious about that, about how roles are structured in a boys' company context. That I'm sure someone out there will be able to tell me more about. But anyway, I'll go to Alan, then Sarah.
I'm just wondering whether Tharsalio was actually set up for a benefit gig or something like that. A graduating actor, he's finished his time with the company, and let's give him a nice big role to send him off with.
It's an interesting thought. I've no idea. But I don't think it's outside of the bounds of possibility, but I don't know whether that's more of the more later thing. Anyway, Sarah.
No, I was just musing on whether it could possibly, I mean, we don't know the answer, but whether it could possibly have been mislabeled, because we know Chapman did do boys' companies. Does it necessarily mean that this was one? Or
I think the attribution to which one, I think it's relatively sound. I think there are things later on that will make it say yes, okay. It is. I don't think it's necessarily as obscure. It may be actually that's just a false reading of the rest of the repertoire, and actually there's plenty of plays with lots of really big parts and all the rest of it. But I'm just putting it out there that Tharsalio is a massive role so far, and I don't see him stopping talking anytime soon. I wouldn't want to learn Tharsalio. It looks like an absolute sod. But the advantage with children is that they have elastic brains, so they can learn all this stuff really easily if they're induced to with enough incentives. Whereas I'm sitting there going, I'm not going to get through Act 1, let alone the rest of the play. Any more before we dive into the second act? So presumably mini break for candles, etc., which has to happen because one of the characters who exited in the previous scene immediately comes back on again. Act 2, Scene 1, enter Lysander and Tharsalio.
So, now we are ourselves, brother. That ill-relished speech you let slip from your tongue hath taken so deep hold of my thoughts that they will never give me rest till I be resolved what 'twas you said. Touching my wife.
Oh, Tush, I'm weary of this subject. I said not so.
By truth itself you did. I overheard you. Come, it shall nothing move me, whatsoever it be. Pray thee, unfold briefly what you know.
Oh, why briefly, brother? I know my sister to be the wonder of the earth and the envy of the heavens, virtuous, loyal, and whatnot. Briefly, I know she hath vowed that till death and after death she'll hold inviolate her bonds to you, and that her black shall take no other hue, all which I firmly believe. In brief, brother, I know her to be a woman, but you know, brother, I have other irons in the anvil.
He says, making to leave.
You shall not leave me so unsatisfied. Tell me what 'tis you know.
If you be sure of your wife's loyalty for term of life, why should you be curious to search the almanac for aftertimes, whether some wandering Aeneas should enjoy your reversion, or whether your true Turtle would sit mourning on a withered branch till Atropos cut her throat? Beware of curiosity, for who can resolve you? You'll say, perhaps, her vow.
Perhaps I shall.
Come, herself knows not what she shall do when she is transformed into a widow. You are now a sober and staid gentleman. If Diana, for your curiosity, should translate you into a monkey, you know what gambols you should play. Your only way to be resolved is to die and make trial of her.
Oh, dear experiment. Then I must rise again to be resolved.
You shall not need. I can send you speedier advertisement of her constancy by the next rapier that rides that way with mackerel. So I leave you.
Exit Tharsalio.
All the furies of hell attend thee. Has given me a bone to tire on with a pestilence. No? What can he know? What can his eye observe more than mine own, or the most piercing sight that ever viewed her? By this light, I think her privatest thoughts may dare the eye of heaven, and challenge the envious of the world to witness it. I know him for a wild, corrupted youth, whom profane ruffians, squires to bawds and strumpets, drunkards, spewed out of taverns into the sinks of tap houses and stews, revolts from manhood, debauched purdues, have, by their companies, turned devil like themselves, and stuffed his soul with damned opinions and unhallowed thoughts of womanhood, of all humanity, nay, deity itself.
Enter Lycus.
Oh, welcome, friend Lycus.
Have you met with your capricious brother?
He parted hence but now.
And has he yet resolved you of that point you break with me about?
Yes, he bids me die for further trial of her constancy.
That were a physic for a strange patient, for a jealous patient, to cure his thirst with a draught of poison. Faith, sir, discharge your thoughts on it. Think 'twas but a buzz devised by him to set your brains a-work, and divert your eye from his disgrace. The world hath written your wife in the highest lines of honoured fame, her virtues so admired in this isle as the report thereof sounds in foreign ears, and strangers oft coming here, as some rare sight, desire to view her presence, thereby to compare the picture with the original, nor think can he turn so far rebel to his blood, or to the truth itself, to misconceive her spotless love and loyalty. Perhaps, oft having heard you hold her faith so sacred, as you being dead, no man might stir a spark of virtuous love in way of second bonds, as if you had your death should carry with you both branch and root of all affection. It may be, in that point he's an infidel, and thinks your confidence may overween.
So think not I.
Nor I, if ever made it, if ever any made it good. I am resolved of all shall prove no changeling.
Well, I must yet be further satisfied, and vent this humour by some strain of wit. Somewhat I'll do, but what I know not yet.
And exeunt. End of scene. So we've got the time break there between the previous scene and this is quite important. How you do that transition on a modern stage. I think it's dumb show time. It's him doing some business. Because we sort of mid conversation, and of course Tharsalio is, well, I'm just going to walk away. I don't want to have this conversation, as he sows poison left and right. And the play sort of knows that this is implausible, that Lysander shouldn't buy this for a second. That's why Lysander is left alone on stage for a bit to go, oh, yeah, I'll just talk my way through around the houses for a bit, and then that's enough work to move the plot forward, because that's all the playwright is really interested in here. Because it's like, yeah, we the play hangs a lampshade on it, but that doesn't mean it's very plausible. But then which of these plots are? But again, it's still doing that stuff of this destructive. I'm really wondering if the audience is supposed to think this is witty and fun, because I don't know. I'm trying to think my way around to how much of this feels like it was supposed to be witty and fun, as opposed to, maybe what's going on here, because this trick isn't a fun trick, is it? There's nothing fun about this. It's not a Volpone faking his own death kind of fun, where you're sort of on board with, okay, this is a dumb idea, but it's quite interesting to see where it goes, and it's going to lead to the fall and fail, a comic situation that's interesting. It doesn't feel like this is trying to be a comedy in the same way at all. I'm really interested in what is the intended mode that we are supposed to take this play at. And as such, to unlock it for us, because at the moment, all I'm getting out of this is the drama of the awful things that are going on. Alan, then Sarah.
I was intrigued on the text. Lycus's last long speech, there's about half a dozen lines which seem to be written as prose, and then it goes into a short line which isn't rhymed verse, but looks more like verse, and I'm just wondering what the point of that was.
We have had a certain bounce between prose and blank verse. It looks like it's fairly standard blank verse. I don't think it looks like standard blank verse. So there is a little bit of back and forth between the two. What's his face? Tharsalio did a little bit of that at the beginning. He starts talking to himself in verse, and then he talks to his in-laws in prose. So the play is playing with that. I don't know if there's an absolute for why at certain moments, because we've always got to be a bit careful about why it's formatted in certain things. But yes, there is a certain amount of play on that. Donald, are you going to address that thought?
Well, sort of, in that it did seem to me, reading it, that there were far more asides than are actually signposted. I mean, certainly in that scene with the two brothers. But yes, so there's an awful lot of interaction with the audience. But Lysander obviously is the counterweight to Tharsalio's sort of disgustingness. So I think, if you come at it from a modern sensibility, you can sort of play it for laughs, and yet there's a really unpleasant flavour underneath it as well. I don't know how a contemporary audience would have taken his misogyny, really.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And it's the thing is, Tharsalio and Lysander are the literal brothers, and Cynthia is Lysander's wife, and there's always that slight. I just thought I'd say that out loud because of when you're the way early modern thinking is, of course, she's now his sister, even though they're not. She's not Tharsalio's blood relation. She's the in-law on that front. So there's an interesting thing about siblings of Lysander should have the maximum amount of information not to trust Tharsalio because he's lived with him all his life, but also you don't necessarily expect your sibling to lie to your face in that way. So that sort of both pushes us in both directions as well about the plausibility or implausibility of where this plot goes. Anyway, sorry, Sarah was next, and then Eric.
Yeah, I'm wondering about that time break. Because I think, I agree with what you said. Like, Chapman's just really interested in the plot, in moving the plot forward, and he's not really fussed about whether this seems to be a reasonable thing to expect your audience to believe. But the fact is, he's written these characters really well, and so you kind of do believe in them, and consequently, this is a really jarring development, especially as Lysander says. Pretty much what you said in the last scene break about, he knows that, his brother has been hanging out with the wrong people, imbibing a lot of poison, taking on opinions that that, unhallowed thoughts, damned opinions of womanhood. He kind of knows he's an incel. He knows he's been hanging out with the wrong people, and so it's a real wrench, I think, especially for a modern audience, to believe that he's going to go down that path of jealousy and suspicion of his wife if that time break is there. I actually think this works more coherently, or certainly from a psychological point of view, more successfully for a modern audience if you don't put the time break in there. If you just sort of run it so that he's like literally just had this conversation, and then he has this conversation, the conversation continues, and then Lycus comes in and he has the conversation with Lycus straight away. Because actually, if he had time to go away and think about this, the sort of character that he's been set up as, he would just shrug it off and go, oh, he was angry because I laughed at him, and he was being a bitch and trying to get back at me and trying to make trouble between me and my wife. That's what would happen based on the character that we've learned about. But actually, the fact that he doesn't do that he actually starts to believe all this stuff himself, I think it would work more successfully if it was like all in the moment and he hadn't really had time to think about it or calm down.
I was wondering if actually the time break needs to be actually even longer. The thing is that the inciting incident happened months ago, and that he's actually just forgotten about it. And I there may be more clues later on to what the timescale here is. But yeah, I think there are things. I suspect in the heat of the moment in a stage production, actually no one people would actually just go with it if but it is as ever, until you do it, you never know. Eric and then Sarah. Not Sarah, Aliki.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it depends how you play it. I mean, you could play it as like also Tharsalio, being the younger brother, could easily be the more spoiled one, and because he didn't get what he wants, he basically manipulate. Like, even if Lysander knows what he's like, it doesn't mean that he hasn't been lied to before. It's just detecting the lies might get harder over time as well.
Yeah, if Lysander's moved out, he's married, and the younger brother's still at home playing on his PlayStation and or whatever the youth are playing these days, in his parents' house. Because again, I don't get the impression of the extended family here as well. How isolated is Tharsalio here? There's that sort of thought of Lysander is actually potentially quite distanced from his brother, actually, and doesn't see him that often. So there are all sorts of interesting games about how they all function as a family unit, of which I'm uncertain. A production can make a decision. Aliki.
Yeah, I was going to say that I thought an audience would buy it, partly because they want a plot too, and partly just because, intrusive thoughts are not that uncommon or that, not, there's nothing wrong with having them. Lots of us get them. It never occurs to you that the bridge might break from under your car, but you hear about a bridge breaking 3 towns away, and then it's all you can think about. I don't know.
Yeah. Go on, and then David.
No, and as if we're talking about Tharsalio as an incel, then that's the whole point of these conversations, is that these tropes, these ideas are contagious. That's how young men pick them up.
Yeah. David.
Yeah, in terms of the sort of unsettling mood, I'm thinking of points of reference like New Way to Pay Old Debts, Messenger, and maybe looking ahead, some restoration comedy. It's not as witty as that, but it's that sort of feeling of there's a kind of rottenness there, people are aware of what moral standards people are supposed to uphold, but you don't really trust either of the brothers, I think, to be paragons of virtue in it. So it's unsettling, I think, that it's hard to know that there are times in it where you've got witticisms being exchange between them, but there's a kind of serious undercurrent of nastiness going on at the same time, I think.
Yeah, this feels a very poisoned well, doesn't it? And I don't think we, and again, it doesn't seem, and there are some good lines, and it does have a bounce to it, but it doesn't feel like a comedy. It doesn't feel like there are comic situations occurring in any real sense. They're setting up what could potentially be a comic situation. The idea of someone, potentially, faking their own death or whatever, and finding out what other people really think of you. But that's not really what this is about. It's doing a slightly different game from that. So it's, I'm very curious to see how that will develop. I think Alan was waving it very briefly, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, the one thing that I was just trying to work out is that I think in the text before, we've heard that what's his name? The wordy one had actually been a servant to the late husband of the widow.
Mm.
So it's not as if he's never left home. He has been out in the world, albeit in possibly a slightly restricted way.
Mm. Yeah, he's done work experience.
Yeah.
Right. Well, let's find out a bit more then. Act 2, Scene 2, enter Sthenia and Ianthe.
Passion of vigility, Ianthe. How shall we quit ourselves of this panderess that is so importunate to speak with us? Is she known to be a panderess?
Aye, as well as we are known to be waiting women.
A shrew take your comparison.
Let's call out Argus, that bold ass that never weighs what he does or says, but walks and talks like one in a sleep, to relate her attendance to my lady and present her.
Who, when it please your honour? None so fit to set on any dangerous exploit. Oh, Argus!
Enter Argus, bear.
What's the matter, wenches?
You must tell my lady. Here's a gentlewoman called Arsace. Her honour's tenant attends her to impart important business to her.
I will, presently.
Exit Argus.
Well, she has a welcome present to bear out her unwelcome presence, and I never knew but a good gift would welcome a bad person to the purest. Arsace?
Enter Arsace.
Aye, mistress.
Give me your present, and all I can to make way both for it and yourself.
You shall bind me to your service, lady.
Stand unseen.
Enter Lycus, Eudora, Ladoce, Rebus, Hiarbus, Psorabeus coming after Argus, coming to Eudora.
Here's a gentleman, and please your honour, one of your tenants desires access to you.
What tenant? What's her name?
Arsace, she says, madam.
Arsace? What? The board?
She strikes him.
The board, madam? That's without my privity.
Out, ass. Knowst not thou the Pandress Arsace?
She presents your honour with this jewel.
This jewel? How came she by such a jewel? She has had great customers.
She had name, madam. She sits at a great rent.
Alas, for your great rent. I'll keep her jewel, and keep you her out, you were best. Speak to me for a Pandress.
What shall we do?
Go to, let us alone. Arsace!
Aye, lady.
You must pardon us. We cannot obtain your access.
Mistress Cynthia, tell her honour, if I get not access to her, and that instantly, she's undone.
This is something of importance. Madam, she swears your honour is undone if she speak not with you instantly.
Undone?
Pray her, for her honour's sake, to give me instant access to her.
She makes her business, your honour, madam, and entreats for the good of that her instant speech with you.
How comes my honour in question? Bring her to me.
And Arsace advances.
Our Cyprian goddess, save your good honour.
Stand you off, I pray. How dare you, mistress, importune access to me thus, considering the last warning I gave for your absence?
Because, madam, I have been moved by your honour's last most chaste abomination to leave the offence life I led before.
Aye? Have you left it then?
Aye, I assure your honour, unless it is be for the pleasure of 2 or 3 poor ladies that have prodigal knights to their husbands.
Out on thee, impudent.
Alas, madam, we would all be glad to live in our callings.
Is this the reformed life thou talk'st on?
I beseech your good honour, mistake me not. I boast of nothing but my charity. That's the worst.
You get these jewels with charity, no doubt. But what's the point in which my honour stands endangered, I pray?
In care of that, madam, I have presumed to offend your chaste eyes with my presence, hearing it reported for truth and generally that your honour will take to husband a young gentleman of this city called Tharsalio.
I take him to husband?
If your honour does not, you are utterly undone. For he's the most incontinent and insinuate man of women that ever Venus blessed with ability to please them.
Let him be the devil. I abhor his thought. And could I be informed particularly of any of these slanderers of mine honour, he should as dearly dare it as anything wherein his life were endangered.
Madam, the report of it is so strongly confident that I fear the strong destiny of marriage is at work in it. But if it be, madam, let your honour's known virtues resist and defy it for him, for not 100 will serve his one turn. I protest to your honour, when Venus pardoned me, I winked at my unmaidenly exercise. I have known 9 in a night made mad with his love.
What tell'st thou me of his love? I tell thee I abhor him, and destiny must have another mould for my thoughts than nature or mine honour, and a witchcraft above, both to transform me to another shape, as soon to another conceit of him.
Then is your good honour just as I pray for you, and good madam, even for your virtue's sake, and comfort of all your dignities and possessions. Fix your whole womanhood against him. He will so enchant you as never man did woman, nay, a goddess, say his light housewives, is not worthy of his sweetness.
Go to, be gone.
Dear madam, your honour's most perfect obligations have brought to me such a hate of these imperfections that I could not but attend you with my duty and urge his responsible manhood to the field.
Manhood, quoth you?
Nay, beastlyhood, I might say, indeed, madam. But for saving your honour, 9 in a night, I said.
Go to, no more.
No more, madam. That's enough, one would think.
Well, be gone, I bid thee.
Alas, madam, your honour is the chief of our city, and to whom I shall complain of these inchastities, being your ladyship's reformed tenant, but to you, at our chastest.
I pray thee, go thy ways, and let me see this reformation you pretend continued.
I humbly thank your good honour. That was first cause of it.
Here's a complaint as strange as my suitor.
I beseech your good honour, think upon him. Make him an example.
Yet again?
All my duty to your excellence.
Exit Arsace.
These sorts of licentious persons, when they are once reclaimed, are most vehement against license. But it is the course of the world to dispraise faults and use them, that so we may use them the safer. What might a wise widow resolve upon this point now? Contentment is the end of all worldly beings. Beshrew her, would she had spared her news.
Exit Eudora.
See if she'd take not a contrary way to free herself of us.
You must complain to his altitude.
The trial is, must endure. that will have wives. Naught else with him is sure.
And exit everybody from the scene. Okay, end of scene. Okay, we haven't really talked about Arsace, who has featured earlier in the play and has been referenced a number of times, but this is the first time we've really sort of delved into her function within the play and what this is sort of pushing towards. And again, it is like Arsace is delivering Tharsalio's press release, isn't it? In the sense of this is the kind of truth that he wishes the world to know. Oh yeah, nine in a night. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is my and it's like yeah. Aliki.
And it's very much a shallow, stupid man's idea of what a woman would like to hear as well, you know.
Yeah, I mean it's just like thanks, but
just that doesn't increase his appeal. But
no, that's sort of kind of thinking that's just making things worse. Or at least that's what I hope the play is saying. I'm not wholly sure the play is going to be saying that. But at the moment, it hasn't landed either way. I'll go back to you, Aliki.
Just one more thing. I'm struck by how many times Eudora just keeps saying, "Please leave me alone" to people. Go away now. Go away. Your interview's over. Bye now.
Yeah. Hi, widow. Can I just have some alone time, please? And it's just like, no, just absolutely isn't happening. David, were you waving?
Well, yeah, just it made me think at points of that. There's an old sketch by Peter Cook and Dudley Moore where they're in the pub and saying, "Oh, yeah, that Bridget Bardot phoned me up the other night, you know, wanted to go to bed with me, but I wasn't having it."
No, absolutely. Yes. Yes, it does have that sort of quality to it. I thought that gives us a performance element for Arsace if we wanted to go for it. One thing I really liked about this scene, I genuinely liked in the sense of I thought it was actually quite something that I think functions quite well, is just that social awkwardness of the whole thing of someone who really isn't welcome in this household, and she said, "If you don't let her in, this will happen." Well, and the back and forth between the servants and the way all that plays out, I think is really, really nicely done. Actually, about that everything about this is awkward. And there's class things to be played with here, social barriers to be played with here. It gives us a scene you can play. And it's a question of also who's overhearing what as well. And it's like Eudora is probably going, "Okay, I'll talk to you, but else listen. Go away." Alan.
Yeah, I must admit, I was thinking that staging, you'd probably want to put Eudora and Arsace moving downstage away from the remainder. So it's pretty well a dialogue between the two, with not much being heard by those who've remained on stage.
Yes, we've got all these people on stage, loads of people who have said some dialogue at some point in this play, but who aren't really exciting, interesting characters yet. I mean, they're not uncharacterized, but they are basically just about. But again, the majority of these scenes are being handed as two-handers, which suggests that whichever playing space they're playing in isn't necessarily very large. And that's something we have seen in Boys' Company plays before, where you have to maneuver your primary speakers quite carefully, because if you have a lot of people on stage, you can't really move around very much, because you've got a stage full of bodies. So you have to be a bit careful. Okay, we got one more scene to do. Act 2, Scene 3. Enter Tharsalio and Arsace.
Well, hast thou been admitted then?
Admitted? Aye, into her heart. I'll aid it. Never was man so praised with a dispraise, nor so spoken with being so railed upon. I'll give you my word. I have set her heart upon as tickle a pin as the needle of a dial, that will never let it rest till it be in the right position.
Why dost thou imagine this?
Because I saw Cupid shoot in my words and open his wounds in her looks. Her blood went and came of errands betwixt her face and her heart, and these changes, I can tell you, are shrewd telltales.
Thou speaks like a doctoress in thy faculty. But howsoever, for all this foil, I'll retrieve the game once again. He's a shallow gamester that for one displeasing cast gives up so fair a game for lost.
Well, 'twas a villainous invention of thine, and had a swift operation. It took like sulphur, and yet this virtuous countess hath to my ear spun out many a tedious lecture of pure sister's thread against competence, but ever with such an affected seal as my mind gave me, as she had a kind of secret temptation to grace my poor house sometimes. But that she feared a spice of the saccata, which, as you know, ever runs in the blood.
And, as you know, soaks into the bones. But to say truth, these angry heats that break out at the lips of these straight-laced ladies are but as symptoms of a lustful fever that boils within them. Or wherefore rage wives at their husbands so when they fly out? For zeal against the sin?
No, but because they did not purge that sin.
Thou art a notable siren, and I swear to thee, if I prosper, not only to give thee thy manor house gratis, but to marry thee to some knight or other, and bury thy trade in thy ladyship. Go, be gone.
Exit Arsace. Enter Lycus with a change of personnel for Lycus.
What news, Lycus? Where's the lady?
Retired into her orchard.
A pregnant badge of love. She's melancholy.
'Tis the sight of her Spartan wooer, but howsoe'er 'tis with her, you have practised strangely upon your brother.
Why so?
You had almost lifted his wit off the hinges. That spark, jealousy, falling into his dry, melancholy brain, had, well, near set the whole house on fire.
No matter. Let it work. I did but pay him in his own coin, his foot. He plied me with such a volley of unseasoned scoffs as would have made patience itself turn ruffian, attiring itself in wounds and blood. But is his humour better qualified then?
Yes, but with a medicine 10 parts more dangerous than the sickness. You know how strange his dotage ever was on his wife, taking special glory to have her love and loyalty to him so renowned abroad. To whom she oftentimes hath vowed constancy after life, till her own death had brought, forsooth, her widow troth to bed. This he joyed in strangely, and was therein of infallible belief, till your surmise began to shake it, which has loosed it so now there's naught can settle it but a trial, which he's resolved upon.
Well, as how, man, as how?
He is resolved to follow your advice, to die and make trial of her stableness, and you must lend your hand to it.
What? Cut his throat?
To forge a rumor of his death, to uphold it by circumstance, maintain a public face of mourning, and all things appertaining.
Aye, but the means, man, what time, what probability?
Nay, I think he has not licked his whelp into full shape yet, but you shall shortly hear on it.
And when shall this strange conception see light?
Forthwith. There's nothing stays him but some odd business of import, which he must wind up, lest perhaps his absence by occasion of his intended trial be prolonged above his aims.
Thanks for this news, in faith. This may perhaps prove happy to my nephew. Truth is, I love my sister well, and must acknowledge her more than ordinary virtues. She hath so possessed my brother's heart with vows and disavowing, sealed with oaths of second nuptials, as in that confidence he hath invested her in all his state, the ancient inheritance of our family, and left my nephew and the rest to hang upon her pure devotion. So as he dead, and she matching, as I am resolved she will, with some young prodigal, what must ensue. But her post-issue beggared, and our house already sinking, buried quick in ruin. This trial may remove it, and since 'tis come to this, mark but the issue, Lycus. For all these solemn vows, if I do not make her prove in the handling as weak as a wafer, so I lost my time in travel. This resolution, then, has set his wits in joint again. He's quiet?
Yes, and talks of you again in the fairest manner. listens after your speed,
Nay, he's passing land, but I'm glad of this trial for all that.
which he thinks to be a flight beyond your wing.
He will change that thought ere long. My bird you saw even now sings me good news and makes hopeful signs to me.
Somewhat can I say, too, since your messenger's departure, her ladyship hath been something altered, more pensive than before, and took occasion to question of you what your addictions were, and of what taste your humour was, of what cut you wore your wit, and all this in a kind of disdainful scorn.
Good calendars, Lycus. Well, I'll pawn this duel with thee. My next encounter shall quite alter my brother's judgment. Come, let's in. He shall commend it for a discreet and honourable attempt. Men's judgments sway on that side fortune leans. Thy wishes shall assist me.
By my means.
And exeunt. End of scene. Yeah, okay. I'm increasingly getting my thought is that to do something with this play is as we go on, because I know where the plot's going to go. We can clearly see where the plot is going to go. I think as the plot goes on, that we're increasingly just in the imaginary dream world of Tharsalio about where these actions go. Because that's what the plot is doing, is that his actions are on some level going to be successful. And it's like, yeah, that's not the thing, is it? Because the stuff from Chapman here it's unrelenting, isn't it? I mean, it just doesn't stop. I mean, you almost want to play to just demonstrate how boring incels are. Just show, just actually just put it all there and just let them bore people to death. And that would be an educational program in itself. So yeah, because Lycus is basically turns up and is doing, hi, this is how the plot's going. And yeah, we're there. But I just love the way Arsace puts this stuff to Tharsalio and is going, yeah, it's all going according to your plan, mate. And I'm sitting there going, you're paying her presumably for this service, and therefore I don't believe a word of it.
Mm.
It's like, oh yeah, it was really successful. I saw love in her eyes, and I'm going, I really hope they're on. I really hope the play isn't doing that.
Jesus.
I and certainly in my production, that's not going to be what happened. So yeah, thoughts as we've reached the end of this first third. Lynn.
Yeah, I agree. I hope Chapman isn't on Team Tharsalio, but he still could be. I mean, we don't have enough evidence to say whether the play is going to end up endorsing his worldview.
Mm.
Yeah, in terms of like summing up my reaction sitting in the background listening, I feel like I need a shower.
Mm. I think there's two ways this can go. Either Chapman just allows Tharsalio to get away with murder, and get all his dreams, etc. Or it doesn't, but he grows up and he's reformed on some level, and it's all sort of fine, lampshade, etc. But yeah, or that Chapman's just sort of playing a satire card. It's all satire, and the problem with that kind of satire is you're still kind of just doing the awful thing, but you're just putting some irony quotes around it to hope that it's okay.
It's still not a pleasant theatrical experience.
No,
so...
and I'm leaning into that at the moment. I'm thinking, let's just make this universe as dark as David was saying earlier, that there's something poisonous at the heart of this, all of this. And that we should, once again, it's easier to do these plays if you make the comedy a tragedy. On that level. Sorry, Donald, you were waving.
Just a couple of thoughts. I mean, it seems to me at the moment, there are enough correctives elsewhere in the play that I think we can assume, at least at the moment, that Tharsalio is meant to be seen as a total dick, basically. That enough people in the play think he is. it's so I suppose the reactions to him, I think, are sufficient to say that I don't think he's on a journey. We say, but I may be proved wrong. I hope he's not on a journey. I hope he gets his comeuppance.
Maybe this is, how do you pull the incel back from the brink? Maybe that's what this play is.
I keep hoping it's going to be how he is proved to be an idiot and all of his plans come to naught and he is humiliated and embarrassed. But yeah.
Well, we've recently had, this question of what's now going to happen with Lysander and his wife. We've seen situations here where people see through the deception straight away and in quite delightfully comic ways as well. And so there's part of me going, okay, the further into the play we go, the more I'm feeling intervention-y. So far I don't have a problem with this setup. It's where it goes from now on that I worry. I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't cut a lot of this. Tharsalio doesn't have to go on, and actually quite a few people go on too long, and there's an awful lot of trimming to be made there. But it's where it goes from here where I'm going, I might change what's happening in quite profound ways.
Major.
It's not unusual for us to advocate changing the final act of a comedy. I almost feel that we are almost at the stage of commissioning people to just rewrite Act 5 for quite a host of plays. Okay, it's work. Let's put it out there. David.
Yeah, for a play called The Widow's Tears, there's not much concern with the tears of the widow up till this point anyway, I think. I mean, it is all Tharsalio, isn't it? And his gee whiz, what stunt and deception can I pull now? I have to say, I think you're all being very optimistic and charitable to expect it to go better from this point on, but what do I know?
Yeah, it's the curse of my job. I have to be optimistic and push in that direction of, okay, that is the conceit of this exercise, is, what can we do? What is the best production we can make of this play? And sometimes it is harder than other times. Aliki, then Lynn.
Yeah, I mean, the title has been mentioned. We've already had the phrase widow's tears in a line. If we take it as a mocking phrase, which is how it was uttered, then arguably we're going that way. I also just think that man thinks he's being cheated on, goes to elaborate lengths to prove it, and only proves that he's wrong, is a much funnier setup than man thinks he's being cheated on, woman cheats on him, ha ha, got the bitch,
Yeah. And of course, yes, because we effectively will have two widows. We will have the real widow and then the fake widow. So, the play is playing with the concept of widowhood, and throughout this, which I say, there are many problems with that from the nature of the early modern period and attitudes towards marriage, remarriage, and sex.
And maybe it's just that we very recently read a comedy in which that happened. Man tries his damnedest to make cuckoldry happen, and it just keeps not happening.
Yes, people are capable of doing this work. At almost exactly the same time. It's interesting, actually, because looking at the Coxcomb, which is a few years after this, not many years after this, and there's part of me wondering, Lynn.
This is kind of a response. It's just like, oh, that's so unwholesome. Let's do something wholesome. I want to kind of go back to David and to Aliki and the widow's tears. Widow's tears, I'm pretty sure, are proverbially hypocritical. So I think that the sarcasm with which they are mentioned in this text is supposed to invoke a more sort of general attitude towards women in mourning. And the age's attitude towards widowhood was actually quite confused. There's a lot of surviving discourse about how it's wrong for women to remarry and blah 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 blah. But practically speaking, particularly among ordinary people, the side didn't know what to do with widowed women, say women with like some independence. So at least among people who like had to work for a living, women almost always married again if they were young enough, and even if they were really past childbearing. It was really very unusual for a woman not to at least consider remarriage. That's kind of how the social unit worked, and a woman of rank was often used as a pawn in political relations. So for a countess to remain unmarried and not be married off to sort of solidify certain political alliances would be really unusual. So there's all this discourse about how it's wrong for widows to remarry, but practically speaking, it almost always happened.
Yeah. Okay. Any more? Because obviously we're a third of the way through the play. We've only got the setup. We can't fully judge what kind of week we're going to have. On the plus side, it has been engaging. I have been genuinely engaged with the writing of this play, at least as a paper exercise. I mean, that doesn't mean I'm excited about staging it per se, but it does, at least I'm not sitting and going, I am genuinely bored. I think there are parts where the text loses me. There are moments of willful obscurity. But the practical playwright of turning a line of dialogue does seem to be generally riding this. Whereas sometimes with Chapman we have been a little more on the please enough. It's moving very quickly. It's not a short play, but we've rattled through quite a lot of text today actually. So that's a positive. Any more? Alan?
Yeah, I think we found this with Chapman once or twice before, because I think partly because he's a classicist, he does tend to use somewhat convoluted syntax, which does make bloody difficult to follow on occasion. And I must admit, so far, I've not been that engaged with it. It's not sort of drawn me in. It's not, oh yes, I must see what happens in the next scene. But it may well be that it's just a heck of a long setup.
Well, to say we're only midway through Act 2. There's still additional material. I'm sure once we get to the end of Act 2, and I do think each act will probably have its own individual structure. There'll be, if not a cliffhanger, but there will be a sense of closure to an act. And obviously we finished a scene or so earlier. So yeah, I mean we've got the setup pretty much in place now. I don't know how much additional development we're going to get before wheels are going to turn in specific ways. We will find out next time. Something to look forward to. Till then, thanks to all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. A good chicken.